Hello everyone and welcome to another video, not from my narrowboat. If you're new here, my name is Laura and I am a kitchen witch. I usually bring you videos from my tiny galley kitchen on board my narrowboat, where I show you how to put a little bit of ceremony into your everyday. I explore the folklore, the stories, and the magical properties of herbs, flowers, spices, and many different ingredients. I create my recipes based on the magical intent of them, sort of making spells out of food. And I show you how to add a little bit of coziness, a little bit of ritual, and a little bit of enchantment into your day. But those of you who've been around for a while will know that I've been spending a lot of time at my friends in London, specifically because I've been doing a lot of posting for a tarot deck that I created, and I've still got a few hundred to post out, so I'm getting through that day by day, but the boat is just not the place to do that, so hence I've been in London a lot. Although I'm very familiar with London, you know, I've lived in and around London for the last 10 years, both in houses and on my boat. It's always nice to spend lengths of time here. It's been many years since I've spent this much time in London. I've been doing a lot of walking around, visiting old haunts and little hidden gems that I used to really enjoy. And so I just really want to share them, because most people who have visited London will have been to Madame Tussauds or the Tower of London or the London Dungeons. If you are spooky and weirdness inclined like me, those are probably the top tourist destinations for a little bit of strangeness. But I want to show you a few of the things that you might have skipped over, that you don't know about, that you've probably walked past and not realised what it is or how special it is, because London has so many strange things just absolutely hidden in plain sight. Before I get into that, I do just want to mention that I'm going to be having an event at one of the places that I'm going to mention, which is the Chelsea Physic Garden. I have left a link in the description for this event. It will be on the 29th of October, just in time for getting you into the Halloween spirit of it all. It's a dream to do something at that venue, and I will be providing some magical canapes, a magical drink, as well as a magical cocktail menu, some music, some good vibes, and then a talk and a Q&A with me. So I'm going to explain what a kitchen witchcraft is in depth, a bit more in detail. Please check out that link, or if you know anyone who you think would be interested in going to that, please share it. Let's dive right into my strange tour of London. The first thing that I want to talk about is London's connection to witchcraft and witch trials. So these areas, these sites, most of them don't really have much to show for their history of witchcraft. There aren't many remnants left that tell the story of witches and witchcraft within London, but you are still walking the streets that housed occultists and mystics and fortune tellers, and also sometimes the darker side of that story too. And that brings me to my first destination, which is down by Marble Arch, and it's the Tyburn Tree. Near what is now Marble Arch stood the Tyburn Tree, a massive triangular gallows used for public executions from the 12th century until 1783. Many alleged witches were hanged here, along with thieves and traitors. The area became synonymous with death and fear, and its legacy still echoes through London's darker history. Though the tree itself is gone, and only a stone plaque remains to mark the site, it is a chilling reminder of how superstition once met state power. The Witch of Wapping is a woman called Joan Peterson. She was a herbalist and folk healer residing near Spruce Island, close to Wapping. She enjoyed a certain level of respectability from locals, providing them with herbal remedies for migraines or small ailments, even providing animal care. Yet this reputation made her vulnerable to jealousy and suspicion. In 1652, Peterson faced accusations for allegedly bewitching Lady Mary Powell. Lady Mary Powell was an older lady around 80, and she left her entire estate to a woman named Anne Levingston. Strikingly, authorities offered Joan a pardon if she testified against Anne Levingston. This was something that happened quite often. The authorities just wanted someone to blame. If you were accused of witchcraft, you could often get off the hook by putting that blame on another person. But Joan refused. In court, Doctors testified that Power's death likely stemmed from age-related ailments, not witchcraft. But Joan was nonetheless found guilty. On the 12th of April, 1652, Joan Peterson was hanged at Tyburn. Joan's story is one of many of so-called supposed witches who were hanged at Tyburn Tree. It's a good example of what was happening at the time in London and the rest of the country. Just around the corner from Soho is Covent Garden. Covent Garden used to be very, very connected to mysticism, the occult, spiritualists, but now the only kind of magic happening there really is street magic. But historically, it was home to herbalists, potion makers, and early medical practitioners who blurred the lines between healing and spellcraft. The name Covent Garden actually comes from Convent Garden. The area was originally a garden belonging to the convent of St. Peter at Westminster, Westminster Abbey. In medieval times, this land was used as a kitchen garden and orchard for the Benedictine monks of Westminster Abbey. The term convent garden was first recorded in 1200, and over the time the name has shortened and corrupted to Covent Garden. It's always had ties to growing food, growing herbs, and at one time was a hotbed of folk remedies and street magic. In the 1600s, it was just as likely to offer you a love charm as it was a loaf of bread. The spirit of spectacle and strangeness still defines the area today. If you walk around the corner, you will find yourself on Drury Lane. Now, I mentioned in part 1 of my esoteric occult strangeness tour around London that I'm not really dipping into the spooky and the ghosty specifically, because that's a whole other video on its own, which again, let me know if you'd like to see that. But Drury Lane is infamous for its hauntings. Now known for its theatres, but Drury Lane was once one of London's grimiest slums. Superstition ran wild here, with stories of ghosts, curses and witch hauntings among the crumbling tenements. The Theatre Royal itself is famously haunted, and back in the 18th century, tales of backstage rituals and dark charms were whispered among the actors. And I have friends who have worked in that theatre, and they can attest to the fact that it is deeply, deeply haunted. The last place that I will mention in connection to the history of witches and witchcraft in the city is the tale of Mother Redcap. Ginny Bingham is also known as the Witch of Camden. Born in the early 17th century, Ginny was a notorious, foul-mouthed, independent woman known for wearing a distinctive red cap, smoking, cursing, and brewing potions. Some believed that she practiced witchcraft. She lived in a small, ramshackle cottage at the Key Crossroads, which is now the site of Camden Town Tube Station, and also the iconic World's End pub. One legend claims that many of her husbands and lovers vanished or died in mysterious ways, and another says that on the night of her death, the devil himself visited her cottage. Hundreds allegedly witnessed him entering but never leaving. Following her death, the cottage drew curious visitors. It became a site of local folklore, and that's why the pub emerged on this site. The pub was originally named after Mother Redcap, and the tavern continued under that name for centuries, immortalising her image as both alewife and witch. Now I want to take a look at some strange hidden gems that are very much hidden in plain sight. Again, if you are familiar with London, you will know at least some of these. They are hidden in the sense that they are unassuming. They're part of the fabric of the city itself. There's rarely a large sign pointing out these things, and yet I think they're some of the most interesting things in the city. Let's start back near where we were in Covent Garden. Tucked away in plain view near Covent Garden is the Freemasons' Hall. It is a grand, imposing headquarters of the United Grand Lodge of England. Inside, you'll find Egyptian columns, celestial ceilings, and symbols shrouded in mystery. This lodge is actually open to the public via some free tours. I have been inside, but I don't have any footage of that because it was a while ago. And it's so interesting. It is a fascinating glimpse into centuries-old ritual, secrecy, and power. So although the Freemasons and the Masonic Lodge have a reputation for secrecy, the building is enormous and it's right there. It's not hidden. I just think a lot of people who walk past it don't necessarily know what it is, or how to get in, or that you can go in. So in that sense, it's not secretive at all. It's completely open to the public. Just a 10-minute walk down Kingsway from the Freemasons' Hall, you will find a hidden world behind high walls and arched gateways. So this is an area known as Lincoln's Inn and Temple, and they are all connected to the role of law and justice. You'll see a lot of pubs around there that sort of themed around justice and judgment. Inner and Middle Temple and Lincoln's Inn are part of the Inns of Court, ancient institutions where England's top lawyers train and work. These are real-life cloisters and courtyards, complete with medieval halls, private chapels and gardens that feel somewhat from an Oxford college. It is a time capsule of legal London, and it is also open to the public most of the time. You just have to know how to get in. So again, these are one of those things that if you're walking on one of the busy streets nearby, you don't necessarily know that if you just go down a couple of snickleways, you'll find yourself in all of these medieval open courts with beautiful historical buildings, and it's often completely empty. This tends to be where they do a lot of period filming because it's so well preserved and it's so quiet too. So if you go down there, you might recognize it from films, from TV shows, and it just has a really special energy. Another thing that you may not notice walking through the city, and some of this actually applies to the whole of England, look closely at the insignia of the post boxes and you'll find an indication of which monarch was on the throne when it was built. VR for Victoria, GR for George V, and so on. Oh, it's very nerdy, but I like to try and find the post boxes that are a bit more unusual. The ones from Queen Victoria's reign or George V's reign. I like it when you come across those because they're quite rare. And another thing that you may not notice is that many of our bollards are actually cannons. As you do this walk through the strange city of London, keep your eyes peeled for small but significant street furniture. Some of London's old cast iron bollards, for example, are actually made from repurposed cannons. Some of them even have like a cannonball in the top of them. Not every bollard that looks like this is a cannon bollard, and I can't really tell the difference, to be honest. But it's fun to know that they're there. As you walk down the river, you will leave the city, and the way that you know that you're leaving the city is that you'll walk past the dragons. These dragons guard every entrance to the city of London. Continue down the river, and just a 10-minute walk west, you'll find yourself at Cleopatra's Needle on Victoria Embankment. This is the oldest man-made object in London. It is over 3,500 years old. This ancient Egyptian obelisk was gifted to Britain in 1819 by Egypt. However, its journey involved a lot of tumultuousness. Is that a word? It is a word, but it's not a very good word. So let's just say that the journey to England was very turbulent. The ship that was carrying it over was actually involved in a shipwreck and multiple people died. Now it sits quietly beside the Thames, flanked by faux Egyptian sphinxes, watching over London like an artifact from another world. I just think Cleopatra's Needle is so cool. It's just randomly there. It's so old, and it's one of the few Egyptian artifacts in London that was actually given to London. Looking at you, British Museum. But yeah, it's just such an amazing sight to walk down the riverbank and see it. It's so out of place, and yet it fits in so well. Just across the river near Carting Lane, beside the Savoy Hotel, stands my favourite strange hidden gem in London. This is such a weird one, but this lamp actually runs on farts. Officially known as a sewer gas destructor lamp, this Victorian streetlight was powered by methane from the city's sewers, quite literally lighting London with the power of human waste. And the lamp is still standing and is still operational and is still running on farts. It is a brilliantly bizarre reminder of how resourceful and slightly disgusting Victorian engineering really was. And again, this is definitely one that if you don't know what it is, you will simply just walk past it unawares. Lastly, I want to take you to some of London's strangest museums. Now, I really wanted to take you to the Hunterian Museum because I've been there a couple of times and it is very gross and very weird. I highly recommend that if you do come to London and you have any kind of interest in the macabre or the gross, take a visit to the Hunterian Museum. Unfortunately, it just so happens to be closed for the next month, so I can't visit it again until mid-October, which is annoying because I wanted to make this video, but there we are. I have been before and I can attest to its interesting artifacts. The Hunterian feels like a cross between a science lab and a gothic horror. It's got a lot to look at. It's mostly jars filled with dead things. Another one that I actually haven't been to is the Old Operating Theatre Museum. They have a lot of talks, they have tours, and again, it's very macabre because it's about the history of gruesome medical procedures. It's actually Europe's oldest surviving surgical operating theatre, and it was constructed in 1822, before any antiseptics or anaesthesia existed. So you can imagine the horrors that happened in that room. So it's been on my list to visit for ages, and I need to get myself there because I heard it's an amazing place to go and visit. But one museum that is very much a hidden gem in my opinion, I think a lot of people don't really know that it's there, they've maybe never heard of it, and it is free to visit as well, is the John Soanes Museum. Back up near Holborn, just off Lincoln's Inn Fields, is one of London's most remarkable museums. Architect Sir John Soane filled his home with Roman relics, Egyptian sarcophagi, secret mirrors, and architectural oddities. So you can't actually film inside this museum, which is why I'm just putting in some photographs of what it looks like, but I've been a few times and it's just an amazing place. You step off the street into this glorious townhouse and it's like another world. The house was left to the nation exactly as it was on John Soane's death in 1837. The collection is clearly obsessed with memory, light, and death. You have all of these snaking corridors. Some of these go from basement to right up to the top floor with skylights. So you have light streaming down from the top into the basement, and it's just filled with stuff everywhere. It's really hard to describe. It's like a labyrinth of collected items over a lifetime. And they've all been put together so beautifully, and the light from the windows works so beautifully as well, and the way the courtyard works with everything. It's just an amazing place to go, and I think most people don't really go there. Obviously they go to the bigger galleries and museums, but I think this is a real hidden gem of strangeness and interest. Moving on to probably the weirdest thing on my list. If you're into anything a bit strange, a bit macabre, a bit oddity, occult, spiritualism, all of that, you may well have heard of this. This is the Victor Wind Museum of Curiosities. Up near Bethnal Green, you'll find the Victor Wind Museum, a true cabinet of curiosities, or as it was described to me by the tour guide, a cabinet of wonders. This is right off the canal. I have actually moored near this museum a few times, and I knew of it because above the museum's actually in a basement, but above it is a cocktail bar called the Last Tuesday Society, and they specialize in sort of absinthe, and they have lots of gothic oddities, macabre stuff adorning the walls. And in fact, the back room is sort of dedicated to one of my favourite occultists and spiritualists, Austin Osman Spare. But the basement is a whole other level of weirdness, strangeness. Every inch of the walls, the ceiling, and the cabinets are packed with bizarre and grotesque shrunken heads, antique erotica, extinct animals, and occult artifacts. It is equal parts art installation and Victorian freak show, and it proudly breaks every rule of museum curation. And from the description of Victor Wind himself that I had from the tour guide, he sounds like a fascinating character. Part of the museum's charm, and what makes it actually not technically a museum, is that the artifacts aren't so much categorized based on the year they were made, or the material, or the discipline with which they were made, or the context. A lot of them are just grouped together because they look good together, and I love that. It's such an interesting way to curate an exhibition. But be warned, it is not for the faint heart. It is definitely not safe for work. There is some interesting stuff down there. So if you're squeamish in any way, if you're prudish in any way, I definitely wouldn't go down there. The final place that I want to take you is the Chelsea Physic Garden. This to me is the ultimate hidden gem in London. Everybody goes to Richmond to go to Kew Gardens if they want to go to like a botanical garden or something to do with plants in the city. Don't get me wrong, I love Kew Gardens. I've been many times, but there is something so special about Chelsea Physic Garden. Chelsea Physic Garden is actually a microclimate. It is built on the river, and where its south gates stand, the river would originally come right up to the garden. Doctors and people connected to the royals would come and pick up their herbs from the garden via boat, via that gate. The road through like embankment was built because it would mean that the river would no longer touch the gates of the historic Chelsea Physic Garden. But its proximity to the river and the fact that it is walled means that it's actually a microclimate in there. This garden is London's oldest botanical garden, founded in 1673 by the Society of Apothecaries. Originally created to grow medicinal plants, it was a key site for early pharmacology and herbal medicine. Many of the plants grown here were used in early healing. By my definition, that means that they were potions and spells. I think it is so associated with what my definition of witchcraft is, which is using plants, using herbs, medicine. That's not to say that that's what the apothecaries were doing. They were using them for their medicinal benefits. But some of the strange things about Chelsea Physic Garden is that it has a poison garden, which I really appreciate, because I truly think that to use the benefits of the plants that we eat and that heal us, we also need to look at the plants that harm us. And it's such a beautiful garden. If you go on one of their tours, which are free, they give you such a plethora of interesting information. Every single plant in there has a story, has a use, even if it's a poison use, and has something fascinating to teach us. For me, it is a living link to the blurred lines between science and sorcery. And so that's why I am so incredibly excited to be doing an event there. On the 29th of October, I'm going to be doing a talk, a Q&A, celebrating the release of my book, which is Kitchen Magic. If you are interested in the history of witchcraft, in strange artifacts like witch bottles, or strange folk remedies, or even folk remedies that do work, because many of them do work. And, you know, back in the day, we didn't know why they worked, we just knew that they worked. But now we have science to back up why those folk remedies work, and I've got some of that info in the book. It is an encapsulation of where witchcraft, food, folk remedy, folk healing all meets in the middle, and it has some history in there, it has some teachings about ritual, how to incorporate ritual into your life, how to transform your life, change your life based on ritual, not habits. So yeah, I am doing that event at Chelsea Physic Garden to celebrate the release of my book, which is out now. I actually haven't yet been in a bookshop to see if it's there. I've had several people send me videos of them walking into bookshops and seeing the book there, and that is the most exciting thing to me, but I haven't done it yet. I think I'm going to do it today, in fact. So yeah, if you are interested in what I do, please use the link below to order your copy of Kitchen Magic, or better still, walk into your local bookshop, support your local independent bookshop and buy the book from there. I'm sure they will appreciate that. And if you or anyone that you know would be interested in coming to that event in London at the Chelsea Physic Garden, it's a great opportunity to visit the garden. It will be nighttime, so it'll all be lit up spookily, and there are some really nice conservatories there, and it'll be a nice opportunity to try some of my food direct. I don't ever really do any kind of like supper clubs or, you know, cooking for others. I cook for other people in my life, obviously, but in terms of like cooking for the public, that does not happen very often. So I'd like it to happen more. I just live in such a small space that it seems, you know, impossible to find a way to curate that, but maybe next year I can put something together to do with that. Thank you again for watching one of my videos. I really do appreciate everyone who watches these videos, who likes, who comments. I get that this style of video, talking about, you know, hidden gems in London, strange gems in London, the occult, esoteric London things, is quite different to what I usually do, but obviously while I've been away from the boat, this is just something, I'm just making the videos that I want to make at the moment. This is something that fascinates me, interests me. I would really appreciate you sharing it with your community to see if anyone else is interested. I would love to hear any more like strange hidden gems that you know of. Strange hidden gems in your city. I want to do a lot more traveling next year, so tell me what's strange and weird in your city. Lastly, apologies for the light. It's been going, the sun has been coming in and out, in and out, in and out, but there's nowhere like consistently lit for me to film. Please check out my book. I've also left the link to my tarot cards down below. I think there's now less than 20 of them available. I will be doing a restock at some point, but I don't know when. Check out my tarot, check out my book. Thank you again. I will see you next week.